torn apart, and just the landscape, everything was just blown over. And I was like, holy crap, this is mind-boggling. I'm from the Northwest where we don't see hurricanes. Yeah, we see wind damage and things of that nature, but a category 4 or 5 hurricane that wipes out a part of a state, the amount of damage it created, it was just, and I was like, holy smokes, what am I witnessing right now? So I get down. I was recently asked, what are some of the coolest experiences I've had so far being a lineman and being in the lineman trade? Now, I'm 27 and a half. I've been in the lineman trade since September of 2017, and I've been a journeyman lineman for 3.5 years now. I topped out, completed the apprenticeship when I was 23 years old, almost 24, and I got into it when I was 20, almost 21. It took me 3 years, 3 months to complete an IBW lineman apprenticeship in the Northwest. Originally, I'm from Washington State. Now I live in Arizona, and I've tramped around. I've worked in many different states. I've worked storms, I've worked big jobs, and I've kind of been around. In fact, I've been through been through 41 out of the lower 48 states in America because of work. And I think that's a pretty cool statistic that I'm able to brag about for myself, because I think it's pretty cool where this trade has taken me and opportunities and experiences given me. With that being said, I can't really narrow it down to 3 best experiences, but I will give 3 of the coolest experiences I have had so far. And now there's many cool experiences I've had in this trade. In the short amount of time I've been in this trade, like I said, I've only been in the trade for 7-8 years, but I've seen a lot. I haven't seen all of it, but I've seen a lot, and I've had some really cool experiences, humbling experiences that I want to share with you guys, just to educate you guys a little bit more the opportunities that the skilled trades has to offer, especially in a trade like the lineman trade. Let's hop into experience number 1. And now, not to mention, these experiences are not ranked, this is the best experience in second and third. These are just 3 cool experiences I've had so far. Experience number 1 was when I first got into a lineman trade. When I first got the phone call to get into the lineman apprenticeship, was one of the coolest experiences I've had. And I was working up in the very northwest corner of Washington doing power line tree trim clearance. And I got the phone call on a Thursday afternoon saying, hey, Austin, this is so-and-so with Northwest Lineman Apprenticeship. We're offering you a lineman apprenticeship. And of course, I was like blown away. I didn't really expect that phone call, but when I did get the phone call, I was super excited and nervous all at the same time, because I wasn't sure what to expect. And I said, I actually asked for a couple of minutes to think about it. He's like, well, give me a call back within 10 minutes. Otherwise, we're just going to skip over you and move to the next guy. I had to just think about it for a second. Just be like, holy smokes, what just happened? Of course, I called him back. I accepted the apprenticeship because that's ultimately what I want to do, is become a journeyman lineman. So I accepted the phone call, or accepted the apprenticeship. And he said, okay, well, you'll be starting working with this company in this area. And if you've watched any of the previous videos about how I got started in the lineman trade and that kind of story, then you kind of know how this went. Anyways, I accepted, and this job was in the middle of nowhere in Oregon, in just the flat farmlands and windmill territory. We were doing a highline job. Actually, it wasn't specifically a highline job. It was existing 500 kV line, and we were running a fiber optic underneath it, halfway up the tower or so. And so that was my first call as an apprentice. And I say this was one of the coolest experiences, was because I was put into this trade, I was chosen to be into this trade. And this was my first real experience on a lineman crew, working with linemen out on the right of way, which is the right of way is where you're working. And, we're kind of middle of nowhere, where we're 4x4 and we're using helicopters. We are using side-by-sides, we're using rigging and all these things I've never seen, never done before. If you guys know my story at all, I went to a lineman school, but they're not teaching these things in a lineman school at all. These are brand new to me. So we're doing these things. I'm climbing these lattice towers and working with these guys and doing heavy rigging, working on helicopters and doing all this cool stuff. I'm hanging upside down from a fiber optic line. And this experience was just like, those first 6 months, actually that job lasted 8 months, was a crazy experience for me because I had never seen it before. I've never done this kind of work before. It's all brand new to me. And it was just like, this is what I'm getting myself into. And it made me so excited for what the trade had to offer down the line. And of course, that was my first 8 months as an lineman apprentice. And wow, was my mind just like kind of blown, as I was introduced to so many new things and like, working under helicopters, working with helicopters, climbing these big lattice towers and dealing with like induction and stuff like that. It was just kind of mind blowing to me because I just didn't know to this extent this was how this trade was, because you see the videos and stuff of like, oh, the linemen, they work on the power poles next to your house, and yes, they do, but this was a different side of the lineman world that I'd never seen before, and it was so cool. So that was one of the best experiences, was getting that phone call. And I was the first time ever like living on the road by myself. I slept in my car, lived in hotel rooms, bunked on another apprentice's couch in his trailer, rented a room from this old grandma in her house. Just the whole experience was just crazy to me. And looking back on it, it was quite the experience. For experience number 2 was after I completed the apprenticeship, became a journeyman lineman. This was December of 2020 is when I officially topped out, completed my apprenticeship. And from there, it was like kind of the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want now. And I was like, holy cow, what do I want to do now? And so I decided to hit the road. I ended up going to Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is very random. But a buddy of mine that I topped out with, when you go through an apprenticeship, you kind of have a buddy or a guy or two that you complete the apprenticeship with. He's like, he's your pull partner in class, and you feel like you get along. You'll have one or two of those guys, or maybe a few of those guys. This guy, we ended up actually taking the journeyman test the same day, and we became journeyman linemen the same day. He asked me to go to New Mexico. I said, sure, why not? I'm all for the experience. This isn't even the experience. This was just kind of like, oh, this is the life as a lineman. I can just hit the road and just go work in a state somewhere else. That's cool. So I did that for a while. Now this is where the cool experience comes in, is I drag up from that job. I go work California for a little bit. And then I get this whole entire other side of the lineman world, which is doing storm work, which I work storms in the Northwest. Of course, that's part of it. I worked ice storms, I worked snowstorms, windstorms, all that stuff, right? Working the overtime, getting all this double bubble, making all this money. I've experienced that part of it. But the part I'm talking about is going to work like these tropical storms, these hurricanes. I dragged up from the job in California. I ended up going to a tropical storm on the East Coast. That lasts like a week or so. Do another one of those. And this is where the cool experience comes in, not to drag this along so far. I see that the hurricane in Louisiana is about to hit. Now, I'm currently on the East Coast working, so I can't necessarily just drag up and like, oh yeah, let me go to Louisiana on the hurricane. So I finished the storm on the East Coast, and at that time the hurricane is hitting. And now that was Hurricane Ida, which did absolute damage to the southern parts of Louisiana. Now, I got done with that storm on the East Coast, and I said, well, I want to go to Louisiana, but how do I get there? At this point, all the contractors, like all the companies are already down there because the hurricane already hit, damage is done, and now the guys are going to work. So I ended up catching a flight from the East Coast to Minnesota to visit some family. And from there, I'm trying to figure out the game plan. Okay, how do I get to Louisiana? So I just start making phone calls. I know some people who went down there, some other linemen that were already down there. So I called them up, said, hey, what are the chances that you can get me on whatever contractor you're with? How can I come down there? I want to come work. I want to come see the damage. I want to come help restore power in Louisiana. I've never been to Louisiana before. I had no reason to go. So he ends up pulling a couple strings for me and the GF and blah, 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 blah. And I ended up catching a flight from Minnesota down to New Orleans. In New Orleans, I take a Uber from New Orleans down to, I believe, I can't exactly remember the little town. Homa, I think is what the town was called. So it's like an hour and a half drive from New Orleans to Homa. And I get down there, and this is my first experience in hurricane. Like, damage, houses torn apart, and just the landscape, everything was just blown over. And I was like, holy crap, this is mind-boggling. I'm from the Northwest where we don't see hurricanes. Yeah, we see wind damage and things of that nature, but a category 4 or 5 hurricane that wipes out a part of a state, the amount of damage it created, it was just, I was like, holy smokes, what am I witnessing right now? So I get down there and I start working, and I start noticing, the culture down there is different than anywhere else I've ever been. The people are different. The people are very kind, very nice people. They're offering us, as we're working in their neighborhoods, they're telling us to come on in, and they have homemade jambalaya, and homemade gumbo, and these homemade southern dishes that I've never experienced or ever tasted before, or ever seen or even heard of, alligator and shrimp and like all these just gourmet, in my opinion, food. The hospitality of these people, they were so kind, they were so nice. And I spent two and a half weeks down there, and it was just such an awesome experience. That was the first hurricane I ever worked, first hurricane I ever saw the damage that those things create. And Louisiana was quite the experience in itself. The humidity, the weather, the hotness, man. It was living in a man camp where you're in a semi-trailer where there's 32 bunk beds and you're in there with 20 other guys. They call it a man camp, and you're getting food from a food tent. There's a whole kitchen staff there, and they make food, and there's 4, 5, 6, 700 other guys in this man camp staying in trailers, taking showers and portable showers, and all these different companies and trucks parked everywhere. It's a crazy experience. I've never noticed or ever seen anything like that before either. And I was 24 at the time, and eyes were open to what another opportunity experience that this trade had to offer. The power restoration when a big storm hits, and you're kind of like the first responders on scene to get the power back on. And such a cool experience. That leads me into experience number 3, which is another hurricane. This is Hurricane Ian in 2022 in Florida. So this one, at the time, I'd already been working storms. And then, of course, you see these hurricanes coming in. And so I started getting text messages and figuring out like contractors are looking for linemen because this storm's rolling. It's a category 4, massive hurricane that's going to hit the East Coast, or the West Coast of Florida. So everyone's gearing up. And of course, I'm get on the contractors with who my buddies are rolling with and things like that. Who's paying the most, who's doing travel reimbursement, all these different, who's paying the best conditions. Are they doing per diem? Is it all double time? A lot of those certain things. So I end up getting with this contractor. They're out of Michigan. So I fly to Michigan. So we drive trucks from Detroit down to Daytona Beach. And from there, we stay one night on the road because you can drive so much with the bucket truck on the road with the CDL. So we get down to Daytona Beach and we're at the hotel. And by this time, the hurricane is like hitting Florida and it's moving through Florida to the east side. Except we're right in the path of it. So by the time it hits us in Daytona Beach, it's like it's like a category 2 or 3 tropical storm. So 40 to 50 mile per hour winds and super heavy rainfall. In the hotel we're staying at, man, that thing starts leaking water like crazy. And I wake up in the morning, the wind is howling for like 46 hours straight. And my hotel room, the carpet is socked full of water. And the hotel is, like I was saying, was every crack. I feel like the thing was leaking water everywhere. And at this point, I was also experiencing a tropical storm firsthand. We were right in the middle. We were right in the path of that tropical storm. So we ended up staying two days or 2 nights at Daytona Beach. We let the storm pass. And then once the storm's done, they start assessing damage. Then they start assessing crews to go to different places. So we spend one day in Daytona Beach, then we drive south into what would be towards like Orlando. And then there's not a whole lot of damage in Orlando. So they have us go to the most affected area, which is like Sarasota area, which is on the west side. So we drive over there and we end up spending like 2 weeks over there, staying at a man camp yet again. This was even a bigger man camp than the one in Louisiana. Massive man camp. I don't know how many people were there, but there was hundreds of trucks, tons of trailers, massive food tents. It's a whole scene, and it's just crazy. And not to mention the damage that I saw there from that hurricane wasn't as bad or even worse than what I saw in Louisiana. But I've never been to Florida before either. So that was a whole new experience for me, was to go to Florida and experience that and help those communities out, restore power. Trailer parks were wiped out, literally just like gone, disintegrated, roofs gone, tore apart, people's homes, their whole livelihood gone. It's crazy to see the damage that a hurricane can cause. And as linemen being there, as like I was saying, like first responders in a way, to see that damage firsthand, it's such an eye-opening experience. I feel bad for those people. I never wish a hurricane, but those are inevitable. Like, hurricanes are going to happen. That's just part of living in the South, like in Florida or Louisiana, anywhere in the Gulf. Hurricanes are bound to happen. You're in Hurricane Alley, and it sucks to see the damage that it does to these communities. But what an experience it is to be able to go there, help those communities get their power back on, and just be there. And a lot of nice people we met there too. People offer us food, make us food, give us food. And you meet a lot of nice people. You see a lot of cool things. We going to the beach. I don't know. It's a whole experience that I think if you are a lineman apprentice right now, or you want to get into the trade, or you're even a lineman, I think it's one of those things that you have to experience at least once. It's one of the coolest experiences that I have experienced so far in my 3.5 years as being a journeyman lineman. And I don't look forward to going to another hurricane damaged area. But if it happens, I think it's my responsibility, as a lot of linemen's responsibility, to go down there and help restore power to the communities and be part of, this trade that is supposed to do that. That's just, part of being in the lineman industry is that exact thing. And not to mention, like when you go work these hurricanes, like the one in Louisiana or Florida, I was mentioning earlier in the video about the pay, the benefits, the per diem, and things like that. The pay is great. You got to think, like in Florida, Louisiana, I was probably making around $1,800 to $2,000 a day. And then, so if you do the math, 7 days a week, 2 times 7, you could kind of do the math. You're making roughly $12,000 to $14,000 a week on storm. So you make great money. You have really cool experiences. You're able to help the communities out. Yes, the living conditions are not the best, but that's just part of it. The place just got hit with a Category 4 or 5 hurricane. Of course, you got to stay where you can, which is in massive semi-trailers with 34 bunk beds in it with 20 other dudes. And dealing with the weather, the humidity, the hotness, and all those things that come with after a hurricane just hits in the South somewhere during the months of August, September, October. Those are things you deal with, and those are the prices you pay. But, with the risk, there comes a reward. With the work, that it does suck. I'm not going to say it's the best thing ever. It's not. Cool experience, but there is a reward. You get paid really good for it, and you get the benefit, the satisfaction of helping community get their power back on after they just got absolutely destroyed by a hurricane. And the experiences that come with just the whole entire traveling, driving, and just everything inside the package, it's 100% worth it. And if you're able to do it, I 100% recommend. Those are 3 experiences I've had so far in the lineman trade since I've been in the trades as an apprentice and as a lineman. There's a lot of other cool experiences too, but this video would be several hours long if I really want to get into all the different cool experiences I've seen or I've done so far in my short amount of time in the trade. And those are 3 that I could think off the top of my head that are like, yeah, those three things are like what makes me proud to be a lineman and be proud to be in this trade. And I look forward to the future and what other experiences and things I get to do, because this trade has so many different avenues you can take, which is one of the best reasons why I love being a lineman and why I think the lineman trade is a great trade to be in. If you want to become a lineman and learn more about it, you go to bluecollaredu.com, or I have a link in the description. Go check out the lineman page. I do have a course if you guys want to take it, enroll in it. That's going to teach you the whole process of becoming a lineman, how to get started. And once you're in the apprenticeship, things are going to help you, math, material, how to kind of do an interview, a lot of the specific niche things that you don't really think of or know about that are going to help you getting started. And then once you're in it, hopefully you enjoyed those stories and those three experiences. With Blue Collar EDU, I'm here to expose, teach, educate you about blue collar career opportunities and things that'll help you get started in the skilled trade. And with that being said, I'll catch you on the next one.